And we are back. I hope you got a bit of time to get a new glass of water, to rest a bit, run to the toilet. I know, important stuff. I'm here for 5 hours, so definitely understand the needs. Going forward, we are tackling a bit more technical subject after we saw how the processes change over the time, how we in IT might be a bit spoiled, and the 3 W's, who, what, and why. We are now going to see a solution for a parser of PDFs using Python 3 and Selenium. And we have another duo today. I've heard that this is not the first time doing it, so they are like, you know, professionals in this. They are like partners and all. And I do want to let them describe themselves, so I'm gonna give them the stage. Hi, Andrei. Hi, Andrei. And it's not a dupe, you know, in the world. They literally have this. They share the same first name. How are you guys doing?
Hi, fine. Thank you for confusing people with both of us being Andrei, but yeah, hopefully we will get to know each other through this presentation and hopefully you will enjoy it.
Let's roll it then.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Andrei, and today we will start to talk about custom PDF parsers using Python 3 and Selenium. I have been with Cognizant for almost 4 years now, mainly doing automation and performance testing for different projects. For the last couple of years, meaning 2 years now, I've been working on automation frameworks, creating custom frameworks for different projects I have been on. That's all about me. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrei Cora, and I'm a QC engineer here at Cognizant Softvision for 1.5 years for now, where I'm dealing with test automation, mainly with Python and Selenium. And for my last project, I have been dealing with creating a new test automation framework from ground, specifically for dealing with scenarios for UI validations, API requests, and DB queries. And I'm continuing working with Python and Selenium. I will hand over the mic to other Andrei, and we will see each other again for the live demo part. Thank you.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the beginning, today we are going to talk about custom PDF parsers using Python 3 and Selenium. Mainly why this presentation is important is due to the fact that most of the information that is sent out by banks or by companies, invoices, contracts, and so on, mainly are PDFs. And you will see throughout this presentation why the validation for PDFs is important for our customers and for our projects that we work on, and we have PDFs that need validation. The presentation will have 6 parts. It will have an introduction, what's the testing purpose, what happens when we validate, and what do we validate with automation in PDFs, how it works in theory, and Andrei will show you in the demo the actual way of working with and how we use to parse PDFs and how we map them, some conclusions with the final thoughts, and if we have time and you guys have questions, we will have a Q&A session at the end. So as I said, why do we need automation to validate PDFs? In today's world, PDF file formats are standard, and like I said, most of them are used by a lot of companies. If you buy something, you'll get a PDF invoice. If you take out a bank statement, you will get a PDF file. So the reason why companies or banks or third parties or certain companies have PDFs is that the security for these documents are very high, and they are not human readable, and they cannot be read by machines, and the documents that need to be validated for this. It's kind of hard, and most of them, when the automation is not part of the process, we need to validate it manually, and it's a lot of time spent on validating this information manually. Moving on to the testing purposes, as you guys may know, Selenium has, it's an open source that has different libraries. A couple of them have the possibility to handle PDFs and extract the text or convert the PDFs to a certain specific format. But this is just only a small part of it, because due to the fact that the PDFs are structured differently for many of the companies or many of the third parties who generate the PDFs, these libraries are giving you a certain amount of information. And the other part of it, when you need to extract the information or you need to parse it, you need to create a custom parser using those libraries or creating something custom for your own. So as an example, in the banking system, if you request a bank statement of your account, you will get a PDF. This document will contain information related to your account, as in your name, address, social security number, or in Romanian is CNP, it's a personal number. And this information is only dedicated to you, meaning that this information should be private and should not be able to be read or parsed or modified by any other person or any other software. So when the bank generates your statement, it should be specific to your account. You should not be able to edit it or add information or remove information. So the information that comes from, for example, in the bank system through the API, you should get all of the information in the PDF that you requested. Moving on to the part of how it works in theory, because Andrei, like I said, Andrei will show you how it actually works. So how does it actually work? Mainly through the processes that we had. We have 3 steps. The first step is mapping the UI values and the backend values. The second step, what we did through our project, is we created a custom location to download the PDF files using Chrome or Mozilla and so on. After we downloaded the files, we basically mapped all the values that were in the PDF files. Due to the fact that before we mapped the UI and backend values, and after that we downloaded and mapped the values from the PDI, the first step should be validating that the values from the UI and also from the backend are correctly populated in the PDFs. In our case, what we noticed is some of the PDFs, like contracts and invoices, the contracts had a standard format in which we can use certain libraries and we could extract the values and convert them into JSON. But for example, from invoices, since a lot of the calculations or a lot of the magic happens in the backend, the PDF files it's generated differently, and the only issue and thing that we found out and applied it is convert the PDF to an actual HTML. And after we converted the PDF to an HTML, we started mapping all the locators on the HTML page, meaning the PDF. And after we mapped all the elements on the HTML, we extracted the information from the HTML and we converted to the JSON format. And now, like I said, the most interesting part here is the actual demo on how it works and how we made it work. So I will let Andrei take the handles from this and give you the actual live demo of the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Andrei. So let me share my screen. As Andrei said, I'm going to present you two different methods that are converting a PDF file into a JSON file, and another method that is transforming the PDF file into a JSON file. So I will start you with a PDF test, where I'm going to show you all the steps that were involved in this process. First, I'm going to show you the actual PDF file, which was modified for demo purposes only and has nothing related to any projects in Cognizant Softvision. So in this PDF file, we are interested in extracting some fields, like for example here, the test email or a phone number or a phone type, or some other fields, for example, some checks, so some information that is related to an order, for example, and also from here to extract the description of a tool or a screwdriver and sum that has to be paid for it. So this is the initial PDF file that we're going to use in this initial test. I'm going with a debugger step by step to see all the steps. Okay, so initially we start by giving the location to our downloaded file, and it opens the PDF file. Normally in every test that we are using, we are downloading the PDF file every time, but in this demo, I'm going to show you a file that was already downloaded. And what I'm going to show you, it's also how we can configure the project to accept a custom downloading location. So in the page where you customize the WebDriver, for example, here Chrome, after all the initial options like the path for the Chrome driver and some environmental setups, what can you add is add an experimental option currently, but it works as expected. For example, the default directory for downloading the file. So every time you download the file from UI, there is exactly the same path location every time. Also, prompt for download you set to false in order to not have to interact with the prompt every time a test is ran. So by that you increase the performance of the test and you decrease the time required for that test. Okay, now let's go back to the actual test. As I stated previously, first you have to set the path for the PDF file. In our case, we have the downloaded PDF files directory with the actual PDF file. And the next step would be to use a custom method named convert PDF contract to JSON that takes two parameters: initial contracts number, which is actually the initial number of files in a certain directory, and the actual name of the PDF. After we go into the method, we can see that our first step is to open a new text file where we will store some information that was taken out of the PDF. And the second step is to open the location and the PDF file itself using another method. So let's say, for example, we have to run the same tests multiple times in a day, and one of the tests fails. What we want to see here is that for an easier understanding of what test failed, we want to add the time and when the test started running. So in this case, at the initial name of the PDF file, which is order contract.pdf, we want to add a suffix, the current date, or more exactly the time when the test started. And then we check do another check in order to be able to retrieve the correct file, as there might be multiple PDFs downloaded. We have to wait until the actual file is appearing in the directory itself, as we might know that in some cases some delay might appear. And in order to surpass that delay, we have created a custom method that initially checks if the required PDF file is in the desired location or not. Otherwise, we'll use a while to wait for about 100 seconds in a cycle of 5 to wait until the file has appeared there. Actually, now using the globe library from the Python, we can extract all the files that are currently in a given location. So here we can see a list of files that are here. So in our directory, we can see all the PDFs, order contract PDF, order contract extracted values JSON file, and so on and so forth. And then we evaluate some expressions in order to satisfy our requirements. So for example, here we check if we have a name for the PDF, and we have, because we given its name in the first step of our test as order contract.pdf, and we want to check the PDF name is in a list of files, which is because order contract.pdf is located inside our directory. So we choose our file. Otherwise, we will have to go into this while and check again if the number of files is greater than the initial number of files. And what does that mean? It is that the downloaded file has appeared in our directory and we are good to go. Okay, the next step after we have changed the name of our file is to rename it with the initial name plus the extra date. And then here we extract the file. Then we have to open the actual name, which gives us the possibility to interact with the PDF file itself. Using now we are using some libraries from the PDF miner. Some classes from the PDF miner library in Python. And with this PDF parser and PDF document, here we are initially creating a PDF parser object, which is related to our file, with our PDF file. And here we, with the PDF document class from PDF miner, we are creating a PDF document object that is related to the PDF parser class and let us interact with all the fields from the PDF. As you might know, the PDF parser PDF is structured in multiple fields. So here, for example, in our PDF, we have a field starting from object reference to 27 up to 248 is the last interacted field. And then we go field by field and we extract in a dictionary format all the name and the values from the PDF itself. So here, for example, we go in each field, I being one of the fields. So here, for example, we have one field which we operate onto. So then we extract by name and by value, and we store it as a key value format in this place. And then, of course, by being a custom parser, we have to do some customizations in order to suit our needs for mappers. So here we replace characters and we add new line after the end of each field. And also we have seen that some expressions keep repeating. So using a substitution, we remove this expression for any fields that might appear. The last step, of course, is to add each new field to a certain text file to store it. After that, here we do another refactorization. We mostly arrange the lines to look much better and for an easier understanding. And then what we do, we open a new JSON file with the name order contract extracted values, where we put all the wanted data. We dump the data, then we close the file. And let's now see, we have this created JSON file, which is order contract extracted values. And here we have all certain tags that we want. Some fields might have a none character because we have to remove anything related to a project that we cannot show. We extracted only the things that we were interested onto. So after we created this new JSON file, we give the path of the new file that we are working with, which is order contract extracted values, as shown before. And then we open the file and read all the data from it. After that, we use another method, which is contract PDF mapper, which takes certain parameters. Let me show you also the method. This method reads the input from the file and creates a new dictionary, which populates the data based on certain requirements, downs or splits, replaces stuff, replaces things in order to suit the needs of the test itself. After that, we go back to the PDF and we return the values in the form of a tuple. And then what we do is performing a soft assertion, also known in Python as delayed assert. What is the use of delayed assert? As normally in a test, for example, if this initial assertion will fail, it means that all the rest of the assertions will not be evaluated. So with a soft assert, you can run all the assertions till the end of the evaluations. And if any of the assertions will fail initially, then the test will run successfully till the end. And only at the end will show what were the assertions that failed. In this case, it's easier to track a certain failure, and also it's easier for us not to run the same test over and over again in case that multiple assertions might fail. Here for the assertions, we use the values that were returned from the mapper that returned them as a form of dictionary, and we compare it here with a class that holds the expected results. Here, of course, for demo purposes, this is a hard-coded and pre-populated class and a dictionary, because normally in any other tests, we will have to take all this information either from UI or either from API requests, or why not from queries in database. Okay, and after we do all these assertions, at the end, soft assert to or delayed assert to assert all the expected results, and checks that the test has passed. Okay, let me run it again and show you how this delayed assert works. For let's say that we change here from the expected result, we change here value. And as you can see, this is the first assertion. So theoretically, in a normal assertion, if this first assert will fail, all the other assertions will not be evaluated. So by using by using all the, I will format this file as to work as expected. Normally this is not required, but for demo I had to change it manually. And if we run this test, you will see that if even the first assertion fail, all the other assertions are evaluated. Failed assertion is reported. Failed expectation is one, that we change an expected result. Here is the advantages of the soft assert. Okay, so this was the initial method, which is transforming the PDF file into a JSON file. Now I'm going to show you the other method, which is changing from a PDF file to a HTML file. Just a second. Okay, so this is our other test. I'm going to show you the PDF that we're working with. Here is another type of a PDF file that has been modified for our demo, which holds different values, different elements, tables, text, and we want to use this in our test. We start, of course, by giving initially our name of the PDF, which in this case is order receipt. And then we use PDF to text. Change this. We use the PDF to text library from Python in order to convert directly the PDF to a certain HTML file. Okay, so here is the initial name of the PDF. And the next step is by using this custom method, which takes initially the full path of the directory for the location of the PDF. And then we create a new HTML file by initially changing its name. So like a converted receipt plus some random strings to differentiate it every time for any other HTML file. And then by using the Python subprocess, we have to call, just like any other command line command or script, by giving it Python PDF to text, which is a Python command, -o, which this stands for output. And of course, as the output, we want to have the name of the file as previously created. And then the file name we are working with, more exactly here is where the files are located, both the normal file, the file we are working with, and the file that will be set as an output. And then here was creating the file. Now the subprocess runs. And now we return the full file name and path of the PDF, the PDF path plus the new name of the file. After that, using Selenium WebDriver, we have to go to the new created file. The new created files looks like this. It's okay, so PDF to text is working good for like 99% of the elements, but in some cases it might return some rectangles, some small modification, but most of the elements can be taken out.
I think you're not showing the HTML. It's not showing up, only the pie chart.
Oh, okay. So we'll share. Is it visible now?
Yes, now
okay,
it's
so
visible.
This is the contract we are working with. As I said previously, in 99% of the elements, PDF to text is working fine, but in some cases it might give us some rectangles or other small modifications. And why are we using this HTML difference? Because depending on how the PDF was structured in the backend, some locators might not be used successfully, as in this case, if you wanted to try the previous method from PDF directly to JSON, these certain elements might not be correctly. So we have this key with this value, or this key with this value, and we had to think of a new way in order to interact with the PDF. Okay, I will switch back to PyCharm. Is it visible? PyCharm?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, thank you. And after the WebDriver opens the new HTML file, what we have done, we are using a map order receipt method, which is a way of working with HTML files. For example, here we are creating a new dictionary that works with elements and XPath. Here we are declaring new XPath. We are working with as any other files. What have we using PDF to text? You might find some similarities with others. So, for example, if we add a new line in our PDF, we can see that a line with just one element will have a different element, a different div. If we add two elements, then we have this other div. So there might be a correlation between, even though it's a bit changed, every time we can find a correlation between these elements, even though we changed the initial PDF we are working with. So going back to our method, here we are mapping all the elements that we want and replacing some extra fields that we are not dealing with now. Here in this dictionary, we use as keys a certain enum file as a constant that cannot be changed. And as a value, the exact value that we work from UI. And after that, we create a new JSON file, in this case, order received extracted values JSON file, which we are going to populate it with the data that we extracted from the PDF, the HTML file. And this will be the new created file. Just a second. Okay, so this will be the extracted values from UI. We extracted just certain values that we are interested into for this demo. And after that, we go step by step into the same soft assertion that is performed on each element. Of course, with the expected result class, we are using now hard-coded expected results, but of course, in a day-to-day situation, this information must be taken right from either UI or API requests or DB queries. As you can see here, this is the new created file that I told you that it would be renamed and created again. And at the end, the expectation are asserted again to check if all the initial assertion have passed. Of course, for this second method, because we have to work with so many different arguments and labels, this is a bit more time consuming than the initial method, but it let us work with any kind of PDF files, whatever, if it's structured nicely or not for automation purposes. Okay, so here ends my demo, and this is the way we are working. We are dealing with PDF files. This is set with two methods, PDF to JSON directly using the classes from the PDF miner in Python, and the second method from PDF to HTML file working with PDF to text library in Python. I will stop my share and I will let Andrei continue with the presentation, and please write your questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrei. Yeah, I will share my screen back now. Can you see my screen with the live demo still? You saw Andrei's presentation regarding the actual live demo of how we use the existing libraries, how we found out a way in which we can map the PDFs and parse them. And now I will give you some final thoughts on what we found during this investigation and during this accomplishment of parsing and validating the PDF. So first of all, if you use libraries like PDF Miner, Py2PDF, PDF to text, they will take you from A to B, meaning that even if you use certain information and certain methods from those libraries, they will not fully solve your problem related to your certain type of PDF. As you saw, even if we converted the PDF to JSON, we still had to have custom code in which we remove certain aspects of the PDF, like Andrei showed you, the appendix part, we had that value for each key value pair, and also the formatting of the actual file to become a JSON. It still needs additional code for you to write that the code, that certain code will not be available in those kind of libraries. The second thing is, if you create a custom parser by converting the PDF to the HTML, you will have the ability, the pros here are, you will have the ability to map each element in a key value pair, like Andrei showed you. But the con here, the big con here is that it's very time consuming, and due to the fact that you will have to map each locator, it will take a lot of time to map a full PDF, even if it's a small one. Like Andrei said, if you add multiple values, for example, if you have an invoice and add 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 products, the issue here is when you convert the PDF to an HTML, you will not have elements like on a web application. You will have only a div for a certain locator on that HTML page. The third thing is, when you using the libraries to create a custom parser from PDF to JSON, the pros here is that it will be a JSON format which the libraries help you get to. But the cons, depending on how the PDF is formatted, you may not be able to use, even with custom code, you will not be able to use this this solution. Like we said, we tried with the custom, with the PDF to JSON for the second type of PDF, and we only managed to parse it and map it with the HTML. Even if we tried creating more custom code to try to map that, the pattern was so, the elements were so all over the place in that situation. So we dropped it and we went to HTML. And the conclusion is, if you validate PDF with automation, will ensure that both UI and backend information are properly formatted and inserted in the PDF. Like I said previously, in some context that we worked on. Some information was not in the UI, and as Andrei mentioned, you need to do specific queries from the DB to get the actual values. So you need to validate your PDF mainly, and another important aspect of this, it will always help the manual team. They will not take as much in validating a PDF if the automation will validate that. They only have to go through specific things, but they will not need to validate a PDF that has a lot amount of text, that has different information that is standard. That should be automated, and in conclusion, it should be easy to help them not spend so much time validating some legal text or some legal information on a PDF. So we have reached the final part of our presentation, in which you guys can ask as many questions as possible, and hopefully we have time to answer all of them.
Hopefully, yes, we do have already 2 questions, but I do encourage you to use the chat and add some more. And also those 3 emojis there, like, whoa, and the applause one, so we can see your reaction to the guy's presentation. Let me vocalize the first question for you, and it is, are you using some kind of PDF processing / validation for the recruitment process?
So we are not using some kind of processing for that, because we always only download the PDF mainly in the folder that we specifically generated to download it, and the parsing process only starts if the format of the file in that specific folder has an ending of .pdf. So the validation process is by trying to see if we have the file that we named and if it has the extension of .pdf. That's the only validation that we have to validate that we have only PDF files in the downloaded section.
Indeed. And the second one is related to the code. I think the demo was, what was the demo on? How come you call the PDF to text using subprocess and not use some method from the class directly?
I can add. Oh, go ahead. It's okay.
We are using subprocess as because we are integrating our automation framework with multiple Jenkins machines working in a master-slave environment. So we thought that it would be a more efficient way of directing the subprocess and the operation that you wrote here, Python as PDF to text.py, directly to the OS itself, and rather than the process from PyCharm. Exactly, we thought and we think this is a bit more efficient for our custom framework, of course.
Yeah, well, of course, the solution also depends on the context. As you mentioned, for you, this was the best indeed.
Exactly.
I don't see any other questions coming in, so I think we can close this one. Thanks so much, Andrei. Thanks so much, Andrei. I'm enjoying this too much, I think. It was really lovely to see, and I'm very surprised that the odds of the presentations, were in your favor today. The demo went good. Just one second of delay there. I saw it. I felt the karma coming. Congrats for an amazing talk, and would literally love to try your parser.
Thank you, guys.
Very much.
And hope to see you next time, 2022 Programmers Week.
And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to ask in private or on any social media. We can answer that.
Good catch there. We did tweet a bit from the session too on Twitter if you are there, but for sure we have snaps on all other social media. See you for the next talk in 2-3 minutes.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.